Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Off the Shelf. I am Dawn Gepfer, your host of today's program, which is brought to you by the Atlanta chapter of Sisters in Crime. If you are unfamiliar with Sisters in Crime, it is an international organization that was founded 40 years ago with the intent of promoting the advocacy of women crime writers. And in those past 40 years, it has expanded to include all genders and also more than writers. So, in addition to writers, there are editors, there are agents, there are librarians and booksellers, but there's also readers. And the and why are readers so important? They're the most important to me because where's a book without a reader? Well, it's on the shelf. And our goal of today's program is to get our guest authors' books off the shelf and into the hands of our audience. So, without further ado, we are going to welcome our guest author for today. She is the lovely Jo Loveday. What a great name. And she is the award-winning thriller author and former registered nurse. She's known for emotionally layered stories that stir the mind and pierce the soul. Her work explores the shadowy intersections of morality, madness, and paranormality. Her most recent novel, Campus of Shadows, was released in September of 2025 to rave reviews for its gripping plot, dark academia setting, and its handling of the complex themes of addiction and possession. Originally from Winnipeg, Canada, she now lives and writes in Florida. Welcome, Jo.
Thank you so much, Dawn. It's a pleasure to be here with my
And
fellow Sisters in Crime members. It's a great organization.
thank you. And we love having you here. Now, when I first met Jo, I've met her before. That's not always the case with our authors, but I had the pleasure of sitting with Jo for quite a while in a bookstore in Blue Ridge. And
Mhm.
we were a fellow author had was promoting her debut novel, and that's where I met Jo, and we had just a lovely conversation and kept in touch. And I begged her to be on Off the Shelf with us and to kick off our 2026 season. So thank you so much. Um, for
Thank you
those
so
of you
much
that
for having me.
yeah, for those of you that are familiar with this program, which is this is our fifth year, or we're starting our sixth year. We've been doing this for 5 years. We used to follow a very particular format, and we have decided to switch things up. And gratefully, Jo has agreed to be our first author to go through the new programming ritual. And so, what we're going to do is we're going to start off with a rapid fire rap sheet review. Jo came up with the rap sheet description for me, which I happen to love. And I came up with 50 questions to ask an author. And then we have selected 10 to 12 of those questions, and we're going to fire those at Jo, and she's going to just answer as fast as she can. And then we'll get into talking to her more about her latest book and her other work and ask questions. And I want to let everybody in the audience know you are welcome to join this conversation. I don't want this to just be me and Jo chatting, although that is fine. So feel free to raise your hand, your virtual hand, speak up. You can put a question in the chat and we will ask it on your behalf. But please participate in this conversation with Jo today. So, Jo, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Jo is in the interrogation room, and I'm going to fire some questions at her. First, are you a plotter or a pantser?
Currently, I'm a plotter.
Okay. Currently.
I started out as a pantser, and it was a complete disaster. There was no plot. Things were all over the place. So I had to really plot things out. And now I'm an obsessive plotter. Although sometimes I do have to let my characters jump in and tell me, no, that's not the direction we want to go.
I like it. I like it. Okay, do you have any tips or tricks for staying organized during your writing process?
One of the things I do is have like a full scap paper, and I write down every scene in every chapter, so with the page numbers. So, and I do it all in pencil because it changes quite a bit as time goes on. But then I could go back, and if I'm nearing the end or wherever I am, I could say, okay, um, what did I say in that scene? If I have to just, you know, check something as far as my facts to make sure that I have those right, somebody's hair color or you know, I don't know, their favorite scent or something like that. And then it also helps me keep track of the timing so that I have my low point in the middle so I can just sort of keep an eye on is this coming out so the low point actually is about the middle and everything is spaced
That's
somewhat properly.
that's amazing. Where did you even come up with that idea?
Um, I just started doing that because I sometimes I don't remember. So I just fill everything out in pencil and leave a couple spaces between each chapter in case I have to add or subtract. And it ends up being, I don't know, 3 or 4 pages of just, regular, you know, um, college
Wow.
bound note paper.
I love hearing how an author does things like that. So that was a great tip to share. Thank you so much. Um, so do you read your book reviews?
I do, actually. A lot of people say don't read them, but I read them even if I get a 1-star review, and those are
Oh,
upsetting. But
yeah.
um, I've also found that they can be constructive. Because, some people just say, just leave 1 star and no comment. But then some people might, and knock on wood, I've never had a 1 star, but I've had a couple of threes, and sometimes people will say something like, "Well, I thought the denouement wrapped things up too quickly," or something like that. They wanted
Mhm.
a little more at the end of the book. So I take those into consideration if they're reasonable.
If they're reasonable, I like that. Okay. What writing retreats or conferences have you attended?
VoucherCon
Oh,
is one of my favorites. And I love that Sisters in Crime is very involved in VoucherCon. And then also MWA Florida has had Sleuth Fest going on for many years. So I've been to numerous Sleuth Fest events. And I'm also this year I'm going to Killer Nashville. So
awesome.
I'm excited about that because I've never been.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I've been to BoucherCon, but when it was in Nashville, which was like last year or the year before, I think, and I have not, and I haven't been to Killer Nashville, so that's on my writer's bucket list for sure. Okay, so what writing organizations do you belong to?
Well, Sisters in Crime,
Yeah.
which has so many benefits. I actually wish I had more time to sometimes listen to all the back webinars and things that are there that are available. Um, and MWA Florida, and Southwest or Southeast MWA. And also, I'm from Canada originally, and I'm a member of the Canadian Authors Association. And I'm also a member of ITW, International Thriller Writers, because
Wow.
I like writing thrillers.
That's that's a lot. And is it hard to keep up with? I mean, you had already mentioned that trying to find the time for what Sisters in Crime offers can be challenging. So, what about with the other organizations? Do you?
It is hard sometimes to keep up with all of the things going on, and so I don't get to participate. I don't participate in all of the meetings. Uh, it's kind of I try and focus mostly on Sisters in Crime and MWA.
Also, before we go on to the next question, regarding Sisters in Crime, because previously we had chatted about the local organ, the Sisters in Crime. For you, are you just a member of the national organization, or are you also with a local organization?
Well, aside from the national organization, I was a member of the Citrus in
Citrus.
Crime, based out of Orlando,
Hmm.
which is a couple of hours north of me.
Hmm.
They've had some challenges this year. So and I just found that out. So I'm not exactly sure where,
Hmm.
where I'm going to go with that. I would like to be able to perhaps participate more with the Atlanta group.
Oh.
Uh, does the
Mhm.
Atlanta group meet in person? Uh, no, it's all virtual now since COVID.
Well, yeah, no, 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 no. I'll let Lance answer.
It's this year we began a different um, schedule. So on the odd numbered months, like January and March, we have a Zoom chapter meeting. And on the even numbered months, we meet at a local restaurant or some other event uh, for an in person meeting, but there's no, it's an open discussion. It's not no speaker or anything like that. So,
Okay.
and we meet the second Tuesday of every month at now at 11 o'clock.
Okay.
Oh, it's Saturday.
It's a Saturday. Yeah.
Yeah, second
Second,
Saturday. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
and
So,
well,
okay.
I was just going to say, Joe, yes, COVID threw a loop through us, as did everyone. One thing it brought us was Zoom meetups, which are fabulous because we get to talk to people whether they're with us locally or not. But we just, as Lance said, we just recently went to a every other format. Before we were doing virtual in person, and now the in person is, as Lance said, more of a social get together as opposed to a program. So.
or as we would like to describe it, a networking opportunity.
Hmm.
We were trying to do hybrid meetings after the pandemic, the in-person and having a Zoom option, but it it didn't work that well. They were kind of lightly attended, so and there
Mhm.
were sometimes some technical difficulties and everything like that. So it wasn't really a great experience. For the people online, wasn't a full experience for the people online or for the people in the room either sometimes. So
Hmm.
um, that's why we went back to one or the other.
Yeah. So, but Joe,
That
we'd love to
works.
have you be with us. We would
I'll
love it.
try. So, we're in Hiawassee, so we're at least 2 hours, depending on what part of Atlanta you meet in.
Hmm.
So 2 to 2.5.
Hmm.
Um, so I will try and get down to some in-person meetings because it's so much nicer in person to talk to people.
It is, and part of the networking that Lance was mentioning is actually we're going to move around a little bit. Where before we were meeting in Decatur, so that would have been a bit of a hike for you to join us. But now we're going to be moving about, so yeah, hopefully it'll work out where you can join us when you're in town and we're somewhere reasonably close, not close, but probably not close, but closer to
Wow.
you. So.
Hmm.
Okay, so wow, we got a little off track there, but hey, that's what happens, as my friends know, when I'm leading off the shelf. Okay, name three things on your author bucket list.
To be a best-selling domestic and international author. And I'm counting that as two. And get a movie made of my books.
Yes, that would
So
definitely
that's
be
yeah,
exciting.
that's a big challenge. But hey, you've
Yeah,
got to have goals.
And they say they should be big, fat, hairy, scary goals too. So, yes, that's amazing. So, I don't know if there's a like a process for that, like if there's a pitch opportunity to like pitch your book for a movie, or if someone just has to discover it along the way and say, "Hey, I think this would be a good movie." I have no idea.
I'm not sure either. But in Atlanta, I think you have a lot more opportunities than you do other places.
Mhm.
And I know some people I went to a couple meetings of the Horror Writers Association this
Mm.
year because my most recent book, Campus of Shadows, is psychological horror, overlaid with psychological thriller. And I didn't know much about horror. And a lot of those people seem to be involved in, not a lot, some of those people seem to be involved in movie things somehow or another. A couple of them might just go and do their extras sometimes or something like that. So I need
Yeah.
to see if I can pursue that a little more.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. If you could meet any author, living or dead, who would it be?
I would say probably Frida McFadden because I like writing psychological thriller and she is um, top dog in psychological thriller at the moment.
Mhm.
And she's a physician. And since I'm a retired nurse, I think it would be interesting to compare notes and see how she approaches all of her plots. And her dad is actually a psychiatrist. So I think that probably helps. He probably says, "Oh,
Mhm.
yeah, write about this one." Or whatever. Or, here's an idea. And I guess that would be against the HIPAA laws. But I mean, I'm sure he's got plenty of stories.
Yeah, lots of inspiration. Yeah, no,
Hmm.
well, she's definitely like leading the pack. I
Hmm.
see her name everywhere. I have not had the pleasure of ever meeting her or seeing her in person. Maybe
What
she's not even real.
what
Just yeah.
what kind of nurse were you?
I worked in mostly critical care, ICU and CCU and the recovery room. So my book Terminal Lucidity is my main the main character is a nurse who worked in ICU and is currently working in the recovery room. So I'm very comfortable with that
Mhm.
situation.
Good, thanks.
Well, this isn't one of my questions, but it leads to a question. Um, the advice to write what you know. It sounds like that is what you did with your first book. How do you feel about that now that you've written more than one book?
I think it's great advice to write what you know because that's your comfort zone. And then I think if you're trying to figure out too many other things, the words can't really flow from the character's point of view because in my mind, I would be trying to just figure out all the logistics.
Mm, right. Right now that's still something you stand by.
Absolutely. And
Oh,
with Campus of Shadows, I wrote from a male point of view of, an 18-year-old student, and that was a lot more difficult. And so my critique group kept telling me, "No, you sound like a girl. You have to change." There were a lot of rewrites because it was hard for me to mentally change vocabulary and just the way you look at things
mhm.
um, in comparison. So I'm going back to my nurse character and I'm doing a series with her.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
And I think that what you just shared with us about the critique group, that just goes to show how important that is to work, have beta readers and share your work as you go, and because it does help it get developed. and give you ideas. And think that's great. Okay. What is something you allow yourself to splurge on?
Conferences.
Oh, that's a
Because
good one.
yeah, the conferences aren't cheap, but I think that you learn so much, and there's so much inspiration, and the network, just getting to speak to other authors and see how they are doing things, and see how they've developed over the years, and what's new and
Mhm.
what's old, because things change in the industry, and it just everybody can always work on craft. So I think conferences are
Mhm.
the best.
Okay. What is something you always make time for, regardless of how busy you are?
Exercise and
Oh,
stretching, because
admirable.
we sit so much that I try and make a point of getting up once an hour, and stretching and walking, or going to the gym daily. And the walking wins out more than the gym lots of times, because I can power through um, a walk in half an hour, but going to the gym takes longer.
Yeah,
So, but I think it's really important because we sit so much.
good advice. Who are your top five author dinner guests?
Frida McFadden would be one,
Yeah.
and I would say, and so I like to entertain. And so when I have a small dinner party, I try and invite contrasting guests sometimes. So I would have, aside from Frida McFadden, I would have Stephen King
Yes.
and Louise Penny, and Dan Brown, just to throw in some other ideas. And then probably Tess Gerritsen, who writes medical thrillers, and she's a physician also. So I think that would round out the group and see everybody's point of view.
Good group. Okay, so when it comes to reading, what platform or format, I should say, do you prefer, an ebook, paperback, or hardcover?
Paperback.
Me too. And I don't
I
know why.
I think it's the portability,
Mm,
because the paperback's a little smaller. So especially if I'm traveling, I can shove it into a bag that fits easily on the plane, or in a purse or whatever. And I'm prone to audiobooks lately too, because that I can do that, um, and listen to a novel while I'm exercising or doing other things.
yeah, I would say that I love to read, and I don't like that I don't read as much as I would like. And that's just schedule and things that prevent that. So, but I haven't gotten into the audio book yet, but that's been recommended to me so many times because I do have a long commute. It would be great to listen to a book on tape as I'm driving, and to your point, as you're doing other physical things, you're cleaning the house or exercising, to have that flexibility of a story. Maybe 2026 will be the year that I give audiobooks a try. So, well, Joe, thanks for being a good sport and going through our questions. I think that might have been a little bit more than 10, but good information. So now you've talked about your books a little bit. Let's talk about them in more depth. So let's start with your most recent publication, Campus of Shadows. If you would, can you give us just like the elevator pitch on what this book is about?
Campus of Shadows is about a college freshman's search for independence that becomes a descent into madness as sinister forces push him toward a deadly legacy, and only a friend's unwavering faith will stand between him and a killer's revenge.
Wow. And
It's a good pitch.
yeah, that was excellent. Where did this come from? Because there's a lot that could be a story by itself, but you've woven it together. So like what was the jumping off point for this?
My jumping off point was when my children went off to college. I found that uh, some of their friends and some people that they met while they were there um, were not emotionally prepared to be away from home. And it's, and they ended up getting in trouble mostly with drinking and partying and that kind of thing. So either it affected their grades or in Campus of Shadows, my uh, main character gets arrested in chapter one because his roommate drags him into all kinds of problems. So they can have a um, bad news roommate and not have the self-esteem to stick up for themselves and not go down a dark path. Or I find that also the Greek system,
Mhm.
there's a lot of partying there, and some of them get in trouble there. Um, but our society tells everybody they have to go to the best possible school that they can, whether they, get into a bunch of debt, whether it's, how
Mhm.
really far from home. And so I think that parents and students need to just revisit that sometimes and and make sure that whole component
Mhm.
is is there, that kids are um, emotionally ready to be away from home.
Yeah. Now, I think that's a very good point. Go ahead, Charlie.
Did you situate this location into one particular school, like the University of Miami or Florida or
Well, it's set in a Florida school, and it talks about all the campus things and football games and all kinds of things that go on at a big school rather than a small school.
okay, that's good.
And dark academia is a big thing now too, which I was not familiar with when I started writing this because it wasn't the impetus. Um, but dark academia talks more about Ivy schools in the Northeast that have all these secrets and you know, ghosts and secret underground tunnels and all kinds of things like that. So as time went on and I found out about dark academia, I did integrate a little bit of that. So there are Campus of Shadows is definitely a cross genre story because it's got dark academia, it's got the psychological thriller, it's got psychological horror because it ends up having a ghost in it because of the mental demise of the main character, and then he's got
Mhm.
to pull himself back out of that.
And
Oh,
so you had said that like dark academia, has been more focused on in the northern areas, and I'm just want like is that because Harvard, it's this centuries old institution, and that's where the ghost and the paranormal like might come in up there. do you think, or I'm curious why it seems to be centered there. I love that you brought it south, but what's your theory on that?
Um, well, I imagine that a lot of the Northern Ivy schools, I mean, they've been around for a long time, so they do have lots of histories. They have their secret societies
Hmm. Hmm.
and things like that. So I think that's where all of that stems from.
Hmm. Well, I like that she said, "Oh, it's not just there. It can be anywhere." I like that. So,
Hmm.
Florida has its own legends too. So like Murph the Surf, and do you read Tim Dorsey or Hyacin?
No.
Either one of those? Okay.
it,
That gives you
who,
some dark side to Florida, period. So,
Hmm.
as well as comedic.
who's Murph the Surf?
Well, Murph the Surf was a professional student at university
Oh,
at University of Miami, and
Oh, really?
also was also was a big criminal. So,
oh, really?
but
Is
he
he
Oh.
was
real?
he was in school forever,
Is
Hmm.
is
literally.
he a character, Charlie, or is he legit? Like
No,
when
he
you
was
say
real.
human?
He was real back in
Okay.
the 50s and 60s. Yeah.
Well, good for him. All right. So, it sounds fascinating. And what kind of research? You mentioned this a little bit because your character was a male. So it's like, what kind of research did you do, to prepare for this story or to weave it into your story?
From writing from a male point of view.
Well, just overall, like you've kind of touched on a little bit the dark academia, you weren't familiar with it. So somewhere along the way that came to you and you said, I want to incorporate this. And so you had to learn about it, right?
Yes. So
Yeah.
I just looked up dark academia and read some about it and read what some of the tropes might be for dark academia. And but Campus of Shadows is covers a lot of different genres. It's also
Hmm.
considered, which I didn't know, speculative fiction. And and then the psychological horror, which I wasn't expecting.
Hmm.
And I was kind of horrified that I was writing horror, but it's not the splatter horror because with my nursing
Hmm.
background, I was putting those people back together. I don't want to be creating that kind of a situation.
Hmm. Um, I like the psychological aspect of this, and you had mentioned that the paranormal element was in reference to his madness, his spiral into madness.
Hmm.
And so I like that there's this, unfortunately, this realism to it. Like these things happen. This is not necessarily just something fictitious you came up with and said, "Oh, I'll throw a ghost in there." You actually correlated it to the situation and made it part of his experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of research regarding how other cultures treat addiction because part of the madness and making my character an unreliable narrator is was his demise into addiction as as um, kind of brought on by his party animal roommate and the I also wanted I thought it was fascinating all the different things that the other cultures do to treat addiction aside from how Western culture treats addiction. And so, and in some other cultures, they look at addiction as a spirit, another spirit coming into someone. And so I thought about that and I thought, have you ever noticed if somebody drinks too much, they sometimes sort of like become a different person.
Yes.
And so I thought, well, maybe there's something to this. And so I researched it more and then incorporated that in the story as to, how other um, cultures can sometimes treat addiction. And
Mhm.
then, of course, my main character, Dave, has to get himself out of this whole mess as well.
Definitely sounds fascinating, and I cannot wait to read it. And one of the things that, as we've done this program, as I said, we've been doing it for 5 years. And one of the things that we learned very quickly about me is if I read the book in advance, I tend to talk about the book too much and give things away. And that's not the goal. The goal is to get people interested in your book to buy it or get it at the library and read it. And so I will say I am so very curious about this story, and I cannot wait to read it for myself. As a mom who is sending her children to college, and you come up with this idea that was
Sorry.
probably a little frightening, wasn't it?
Well, I wrote it after my children were through college,
Oh,
and
okay. They're
and
home, they're safe, they
they're
survived.
home,
Okay.
and but I saw what happened to some of the other
Mhm.
uh, students, some people that they knew, some people that if we went to visit, that the behavior of some of the other students, and
Mhm.
that like you just feel sorry for that kid because that they're going to be in a lot of um, mental trouble, and can it affect their grades and things like that
Mhm.
too.
Yeah. So, having written this story and knowing a little bit more and realizing, hey, sometimes these kids are not ready for the independence that they're given when they're sent, away from home. Do you have any advice for a parent in that predicament? Like, oh, my child graduated high school and this is what's next for them. Like, how can a parent really look at their child and say, are you ready for this? I mean, and I know as a parent we should know, but with the pressures of society, oh, this is what they're supposed to do, this is what's next, and pressure they put on themselves
Hmm.
from other
Exactly.
sources outside of the home. How do you have any suggestions of like what a parent can do to say, yep, we're ready, or no, let's pump the brakes?
I think you probably have to start at the beginning of high school asking
Mm,
questions about if someone wants to be away, what their goals are, and have them realize that, there can be untoward influences in different places,
mhm,
and talk about how you deal with those kinds of things. And then also just listen to your student,
mhm,
because I know of someone who got into a really good Ivy, and everybody was really excited. She was excited, the school was excited, the parents were excited, and but she didn't, when it came down to it, she didn't want to go. And she
oh,
told her parents she didn't want to go. And so they said, oh, you worked so hard, you got in this school, just go ahead and try your first semester. And which, I might say the same thing. And then she wasn't ready and she wanted to come home, and you know,
oh,
uh, she did some things that created a situation where she had to come home.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
So definitely
Mhm.
listen to your student.
Yeah. Okay, so you have touched on your first book, Terminal Lucidity. Let's talk about that because is that the first book you published?
Yes.
Okay. So let's go back in time and talk about that and how, you're a registered nurse, you're working, and you get this idea and you say, you know what, I'm gonna I'm going to tell this story.
Hmm. Um, well, I very comfortable in a hospital situation, and so I thought that I could write a thriller about the hospital, um, with the hospital as a background. But the reason that I started writing Terminal Lucidity was I was looking for something to write about, and I was watching Science Alert on Twitter because I like science and I like weaving the science into my books. And Science Alert came up with this post that talked about a US based company that was doing experimenting on brain dead patients to try and regenerate their brain stems. And it said, what could go wrong? And so, my nurse brain just kicked right in because I was very familiar from my days in ICU with someone who becomes brain dead is ventilator dependent, and muscles break down and all kinds of body systems don't work all that well. And so I started thinking about, okay, so maybe someone can regenerate a brainstem with AI implants and stem cell regeneration and things like that. But what about the family? Do they, um, even if they say they are prepared to try and save their family member because they're very sad that, that person is in this situation, do they realize the long-term consequences? What about the hospital and the ethics of all of this being done within a hospital? Um, some of the staff would be uh, pro helping people, and some of the staff would say this is awful that it's like torture on a person. So there were lots of different things that I thought I could um, bring in and contrast in that regard.
Were you already writing at this time, or was this the beginning of you writing?
I had done some short stories. I hadn't done a lot, but it took a long time to learn the craft of writing,
Mhm.
about 10 years. And I understand now that that is very common. I heard 10 years and three books
Whoa.
until you're ready to get out there in the world. And so whether that's somebody who's you know doing different types of books or a series or whatever, but it takes time to learn the craft,
Mhm.
and I was about average in that regard.
I want to go back to something you said when we were doing your rap sheet, and we talked about if you were a plotter or a pantser, and you said, "Well, I'm a plotter now, and I tried to be a pantser, but it was a mess." So, is that one of your stories? Is that one of your books that's been published? The mess. Did you organize the mess?
Yes, I organized the mess
Okay.
with lots of rewrites. So there were just lots and lots of rewrites until I learned that you need
Wa-
to you need to have a plot.
Was that Terminal Lucidity?
That was actually Campus of Shadows. Campus of
Oh,
Shadows was the first one that I
okay.
wrote, and then um, I tucked it away um,
Mhm.
because I knew that I wanted to do more with it. I wanted to have more depth, and so then I wrote Terminal Lucidity
Mhm.
and um, and went back to Campus of Shadows for one more layer of revision.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
And
I
go
felt
ahead.
like I knew the craft of writing better at that point.
and to rave reviews. Like a lot, just people that read it love it, and so obviously I'm glad you didn't give up on it. Sometimes when we talk to an author and they tell us about the book in the drawer, and that's what Campus of Shadows started to be for you, but then you took it out of the drawer and
Mhm.
you said, let's work on this again. And that's a good story. That's a really good story. That's one of my favorites when people say, I actually did go back and redo that one, and now it's out into the world. It obviously wanted to be out in the world, so you went back to it, which is great. So now let's, believe it or not, we're already coming up on an hour. That is one of the things that happens in these conversations. The time does fly. So thinking back to, so you put Campus of Shadows in the drawer, and then you said, then you got this idea for terminal lucidity. How long did it take you from that point of origin idea to start to work on it? And what did you do along the way to develop your craft so that it was something you felt like you were ready to put out into the world?
I was in a critique group in South Florida where we met weekly. And that was the biggest help
Hmm.
because meeting weekly required me to have something written.
Hmm.
And also, the uh, the people were really good in the critique group and gave me a lot of feedback, and they were very patient with me when I kept doing things wrong. Um, so I think that was critical in learning the craft.
Hmm.
And then you just have a lots of layers of revision. You revise, and then you have to revise again and revise again, and you just have to keep pushing forward. It's a long process.
Did you take any classes? Or you mentioned you like to attend conferences. Is that when
I,
you started going to the
yes, I
conferences?
was going to conferences. I've read a dozen books on writing.
Hmm.
I took weekend classes um, from various writing coaches, mostly
Hmm.
from Joyce Sweeney, who was in South
Hmm.
Florida. She
Hmm.
used to do weekend weekend classes and workshops.
Where do
And
you live? Where do you live in Florida?
And now I live in Lake Placid, Florida, which is just south of the town of Sebring.
Yeah.
And but I was in South Florida for many, many years.
Are you still in that critique group?
No, that critique group has disbanded, unfortunately.
Hmm.
Um, we started meeting by Zoom during COVID, and then things just sort of dwindled, and I miss them. It was a
yeah.
good group.
And what about, have you found another group to where you are now that is helpful in that sense?
There is another group that meets in Sebring.
Hmm.
Uh, it's it's the north end of Sebring, so it's quite a long drive for me.
Yeah.
Um, and then when I'm in Hiawassee, there's a group that meets in Blue Ridge.
Oh, is that how you
Yeah.
know Jeff Shaw?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
and by the way, that's how I met Joe, was through Jeff. He
Yes.
introduced us at the book signing. So,
Who he was a Sisters in Crime member. I'm not sure if he
mhm,
still is,
mhm,
because in the mountains we're farther away
mhm.
from town.
Yeah, yeah. I remember I asked somebody, I was like, what do you miss most about living in the mountains? And, because it's gorgeous, right? We just think that's so, you know, idyllic. And she said, shopping. And I said, oh, I would miss that very much too. So maybe I should not think about moving to the mountains. So,
Well, Amazon is helpful, but it They don't have everything.
Yeah. Thank goodness for Amazon, right?
Hmm.
So, as we get to the closing of this conversation, I am curious about a few more things. I'd love to have you walk us through the average day in the life of you as as a writer. Like, what does the normal day in Jo Loveday's day look like? Life look like?
Well, now after having a couple, with a couple books out, there's much more marketing
Mm,
that's involved. So, I get up and try and get my words written. So first, because first thing in the morning, I'm the most fresh in that regard. So a few hours of writing and then uh, some social media posts. Um, and then there are just other things like trying to get set up on other podcasts or uh, just setting up book clubs or book talks and things like that. So there's much more involved with the marketing. And then there's just the business end of it and
mhm,
accounting and things like that too.
mhm.
So,
And then life itself,
mhm.
right? Like you gotta eat. If you have a dog, you gotta walk the dog. I mean, yeah, a day can get away from you for sure. So how many do you said you write for a couple of hours. Are you challenging yourself to write for a certain amount of time or to hit a certain number of words?
I don't stick to one or the other consistently. Maybe I should, I'm not sure. But I do try and, hit like I try and write a scene, if I can do that. But if things aren't working, then I give myself a break and go do something else. And although more recently, I've made myself write because if you have words on paper, then you can always change them.
Mm,
Before, if I got stuck, I would actually go read sometimes because, that could help. But I find, I can always change the words as long as there's something there, even if I don't like what it is.
mhm. True. So you mentioned reading, and as I've mentioned, this program really is meant for our reader audience. And so tell us something that what do you like to read? Uh, First off, genre wise.
Thrillers, and that's why I write thrillers because I like to read thrillers. So I stay in that genre most of the time. Uh, once in a great while, maybe historical fiction, but for the most part, thrillers and mystery books and psychological thrillers.
How much do you read in a like let's say a month? Like how many books might you go through in a month or get through?
It's not multiples. I wish it was. It's like it's about one, maybe one and a half. If I have some audiobooks,
Hmm.
it can be that I actually physically read one and then I um, listen to one or two audiobooks
Hmm.
if I have them in there too.
Hmm.
Um, so the audiobooks help
Hmm. Yeah.
to get through, and
Hmm.
um, I think that also helps with the voice in your head, like your character's voice,
Hmm.
because the audiobooks, you're listening. So it seems to help with sometimes a character's voice. Like, does my character sound like another character
Hmm.
should? So I think that's been
Hmm.
helpful for me also.
Yeah. So part of your reading for leisure is actually also helping you develop as a writer. So, and you had said it earlier, you said when sometimes if you feel stuck going to read, can help your writer voice. So I agree with that. I'm very
Mhm.
motivated to write when I'm reading. So I get that. So we have a program, another program here with Sisters in Crime Atlanta, and it is called Murder by the Book. And once a month, on the first Saturday of every month, we get together through Zoom and we talk about a book that we have read, or we share what books we have read during the month and how our impression of them. And as a part of that program, I would like to ask you to share something you've read recently and tell us how you like it and if you recommend it for us to also pick up and add to our to be read piles.
The book I read most recently was Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House, and that's psychological horror. And I read it because people mentioned that Campus of Shadows had some of those psychological horror attributes. So I was just interested in how that happened. And so it's that book uses the house as the antagonist and has the house influence people who are in it. So I thought that was kind of a different approach, and I thought that was interesting. Um, and, as a writer, I do try and see how people do things differently.
Mhm.
Right now, I'm reading Gillian Flynn's Sharp Edges.
I read that.
Um, I had not read it. An editor recommended that I read it, and
Mhm.
she's great with her unreliable narrators, and so that's what I've been
Mhm.
studying lately is how other people um, do unreliable narrators because I
Mhm.
like the psychological thriller aspect.
Mhm.
With Frida McFadden, she's really good at it too. She has The Housemaid that everybody knows about and now is coming out in a as a movie or Netflix
Mhm.
series or something. And Ward D I thought was fascinating as a nurse because it's set in a psychiatric ward. And I remember in nursing school really being terrified about going in a psychiatric ward to have to work and you can get locked in there with them. And yes, there's other staff, but it's still pretty creepy.
Yeah. Yeah. As we really are hitting the minute mark. Um, Tell us what's next. You said you're working on a sequel, but tell us like what's next for you and when might this sequel to Terminal Lucidity be out?
So yes, I'm bringing my Ariel character, the nurse from Terminal Lucidity, back. And in that story, she discovers that a phosphate mining company that has been dumping chemicals
Mhm.
in the ground. It's poisoning the 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 ground and the plants and things nearby, and affecting women in the area, particularly teenage girls. And so she is, tries to get all this figured out and stopped.
Mhm. Does
So
it have, does your book have a name yet?
not yet.
Awesome. Before we sign off, does anybody have any questions for Joe? I totally dominated the conversation and I said I wasn't going to do that, but I'm also keeping an eye on the chat.
Where'd you go to nursing school?
In
Oh,
Canada. And
Canada.
yeah, St. Boniface School of Nursing.
Very good.
and when did you come to the States?
I got a job offer in 1979 from Holy Cross Hospital in Fort Lauderdale and
Uh,
moved here with uh, some girlfriends from nursing school because we had 98 days of below zero weather in a row that winter. And I thought it just didn't warm up. It was 20 below all winter, and so I thought Fort Lauderdale sounds pretty darn good.
Yeah. Well, for sure. I was thinking that too. I was like, wow, from one extreme, weather extreme to the other. Yeah. Oh, so.
Mm.
All right. Well, Joe, I thank you for your time and I thank you for your patience and your collaboration as we were putting together this new format. You really, really were helpful to me. And I know we spent some time chatting several months ago, but this process with you through email has really made me feel like like we're friends. More so than just having met that one time. So thank you so much. I do hope that when you're in Georgia, you will be able to join us. We have our Facebook page where we post what's going on, and we would love to meet you in person sometime.
That would be fun. And thank you so much for having me, Dawn. I really appreciate the opportunity. And it's great to meet other people in the Sisters in Crime family. I think Sisters in Crime is a really great organization.
Thank you. And the Atlanta chapter is a good chapter. And we have some of our like Linda Foster's joining us. She is in I'm going to say South Africa. Is that
In
correct?
Kenya.
Kenya. Sorry, Kenya. And Linda Whitaker is on here, and she's in North Carolina. So we have a wide berth, and you are welcome to be in our circle. We would love that.
Thank you. I look forward to meeting you all in person.
Good.
Yes.
I put the February meeting location in the
Yes. So thank you, Lance. We will be meeting at the Family Dog, which is on Highland Avenue in Atlanta. That will be our February networking get together. And more details to come. That'll be, I know for sure on Facebook, but I'm sure Linda will also have it on our website. And just for those of you that are interested, next month's off the shelf author is author Debbie Burke. And just look for more information again on Facebook and our website on how to join us and a little bit of Debbie's background before we chat with her. So I thank all of you for joining us today. I know there's threatening weather for some of us. Not those of us in Florida where it's 85 degrees, but for those of us here in Georgia and the north, we've got potential ice storms heading our way. And so I just hope everybody stays safe and has a wonderful weekend.
Yes, be
Thank you.
safe. And
Thanks,
thank you.
Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Very good.
Thank you.